Welcome everyone to Dementia Chats. I'm Lori LeBay, the founder of Alzheimer's Speaks and Dementia Chats. And history on me is my mom had dementia for 30 years, so she started at my age in her mid-50s and lived till the age of 86, taught me a lot of lessons, and I realized how much isolation and lack of knowledge there was available for people in terms of how do you live with this disease on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis. And so one of the reasons for Dementia Chats is to allow people to hear the voice of those that are actually diagnosed with the disease. They have brilliant insights that can teach us so much if we just ask the questions and have the conversations. And so it's an honor for me, twice a month to facilitate this group. The public is always welcome to join us, both family and professionals, and pose any questions. We don't really have an agenda. We talk a little bit before we get started about some ideas for a conversation, but there never seems to be a lack of conversation for us to fill the hour with little tidbits, I think, that will help you. So, Brian, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Brian LeBlanc. I was diagnosed in October 2014 with early onset Alzheimer's. I'm 55 now. I was 54 at the time of diagnosis. I am fourth generation of having the disease. Great-grandmother, grandfather, mother, and now me. My father had vascular dementia, and my wife's grandmother also had Alzheimer's. So I've been around the disease since my teens. So that's a long time to be around something, but it kind of gave me an insight of what the disease was like. But I can tell you, it's nothing like living with it. It's definitely a challenge. However, I always like to say that I have Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's doesn't have me. Mm-hmm. I refuse to let it define who I am. So that's my backstory.
Great, thank you. Harry, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, my name's Harry Urban. I live in Pennsylvania. 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with dementia, probably Alzheimer's. In those 12 years, I had the good times, and I spent a lot of times in the pits of dementia, which led me to writing my blog, mythoughtsondementia.com, where I try to put down my thoughts on dementia. And I also created a Facebook, several dementia-related Facebook groups called Forget Me Not. And anybody's welcome to join.
Okay, Harry, can you just give some people some of your subgroups within Forget Me Nots?
Forget Me Not. We have a main group, and our main group is mostly caregivers now. It didn't start out that way, but it's a caregiver group now, and then. I broke down into individual dementia groups, like Alzheimer's, vascular, Lewy bodies, and FTD. And then dementia's not all doom and gloom, and I didn't want groups that are nothing but doom and gloom, woe is me type thing. So we have groups like the Fun Group. We have Crafts and Gardens. Oh heavens! There's all kind of there's a woman folk group that is for women only. I created the group and then they kicked me out of it right away. that was kind of cruel on them. But we have like a recipe group, and so many of us like to share recipes and things like that. So I'm trying to get as many groups as I can, and it keeps growing as we grow, because more and more people are there, and living with dementia is more than just having our disease. We can still do things.
Okay, great. Thank you, Harry. And Paulan, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Paulan Gordon. I live in Ohio. I was diagnosed with vascular dementia about 4 years ago now. And my father had Alzheimer's disease. He died, he has passed since, but he had Alzheimer's disease. And I think that that was kind of a really scary thing when I was diagnosed, because I saw what happened to him, you know, as the disease developed. So it was a very scary thing. But I, you know, spent a lot of time with dementia mentors and with some of the other online support groups, and try to listen to people and empathize a little bit, and see if I can offer any words of suggestion.
Okay, great. Well, today we're gonna talk about kind of caregiving, care partnering, and the effects that it has on a relationship. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is the notion of sacrifice, and just the term caregiver typically, you know, makes someone feel like they're sacrificing, they're giving away. And so I believe all of us here, you know, believe in using terms like care partner and care companion, though even when I go out and speak, I still use that term because that's the common thing, and then I try to make the shift from there. So there's that sense of, you know, giving up and giving to others in terms of that word. But I think one of the things that isn't always talked about or even noticed, you know, in a lot of factors, is the kind of sacrifice, the giving that a person with dementia does to try to maintain their relationship with their loved ones, and their coworkers, and, you know, whoever it might be in their life, and the difficulty that they have doing what used to be familiar tasks, you know, and activities that aren't easy for them to do anymore, and how that affects the person with dementia emotionally, in terms of not being recognized, and maybe sometimes feeling that it's not appreciated how hard they're working with that. And and this affects everybody a little bit differently, from maybe a physical task of exercising or going for a walk, or that it might be difficult for someone to do, or sitting down and watching a movie where they don't have the attention span to really catch the storyline anymore, but they'll try to sit still and be quiet and not divert their partner, so their partner can still enjoy that film and just find pleasure in just sitting next to somebody, you know, but it's on a different level. And then there's the spin of emotional sacrifice, psychological sacrifice as well. So Brian, I'm going to throw that out to you. I'm just kind of spitting out ideas, and we'll just let it go where it goes, like we always do.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned about the TV shows or the movies. One thing that just popped into my head was my wife Shannon and I were watching a DVD or a Blu-ray, and I just found it, and to this day I can't remember what the movie was, but I was just laughing and laughing and laughing. And you know how you can tell if somebody's staring at you? And so I kind of turned my head and I looked at her, and she was staring at me. I said, "Did I do something wrong?" She says, "Do you not remember seeing this movie about 2 weeks ago?" And I said, "No." I said, "But the beauty of me is all you have to do is buy me one DVD, wrap it up, give it to me every couple of months, and hey, I got a new movie." But you know, you talk about sacrifices, and we were talking about this earlier before we started recording. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that we had talked about people not understanding. They not only understand the disease or don't understand the disease, but they don't understand what we go through on a daily basis. Yes, luckily, we have people that take care of us. In my case, I have my wife and an adult daughter and a 16-year-old son. But when things go wrong, we got into a discussion also about electronic devices, but I have reminders on my phone that tell me not to call and complain to my wife, because I would find little nitpicky things every day. And I would call her, not knowing, but I would call her up to 10 times a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but average. And she came home one day and she said, "This has got to stop." And she says, "You've got to find a way to either wait until I get home or just don't say anything, but you've got to stop calling." So I put messages on my phone. I have 5 reminders that go off periodically during the day to remind me not to call and complain. Then I had to put another one on there to tell myself, do not meet her at the door when she pulls into the garage and open the door and say, "Did you know?" Because I would do that too. So it's not, I know that's not so much of a sacrifice, but what I've done now is I kind of hold it in. And when nobody's home, then I yell at Dallas. He's my dog. And I just vent to the air, because it's not fair. It's not fair to the people that take care of me for me to complain. Yes, I have this disease. And yes, we have had to make so many sacrifices as a family. I mean, we had to uproot our home and move to another place because I couldn't work anymore. My wife is our sole financial supporter now. And the family had to make sacrifices. But as the person living with the disease, I make sacrifices to try to make their lives as normal as I possibly can. And I'll tell you, it's exhausting. It's an exhausting task to do this every single day. But the more you do it, it does kind of become a habit, and it makes it a little bit easier.
So Brian, let me ask you this. Do you, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot or say anything that they're not comfortable with, especially when we're talking about families and stuff, and friendships, but do you think your family and friends understand how much work it is for you to adapt and try to make their life easier and still keep comfort within your own purpose?
No, I don't, because I think the only ones that have the ability to understand that, just like my wife and kids, I don't know if I fully understand what they go through. So I really don't think that they can understand what we go through or what I go through on a daily basis. They know that I have this terminal disease, and that's when you say the word terminal, that's hard, because they know what the end is going to be. So, I really don't think so. I think it's a mutual misunderstanding from one side to the other. But one thing that Shannon and I do is we communicate. We talk so much about things to try to understand what goes on in the middle of the day or during the end of the day or the middle or the morning. But we do it in a way to where I usually let her vent to me, because she's the one that's been at work all day and dealing with people and so forth. She runs a Section 8 HUD unit. So she has it's a very demanding, very stressful job. So I usually let her vent depending upon the day. And if I remember, even if I had a small little thing, I won't mention it. I won't tell her, because I want that to be all about her. And most of the time I'll write it down. If I have things, and if it's meaningless, then I'll just kind of let it go. And the beauty about that is I won't remember it. So I won't bring it up again.
Okay, great. How about you, Harry? What are your thoughts? Do you feel like you sacrifice, and is it acknowledged? And if so, how?
I can be speaking in front of a group of care partners, and it's very easy for me to pick out the happy ones and the unhappy ones. Okay, now happy ones are the ones that don't see the sacrifices they're making. We just adapt to them. They don't think about the things they're losing, the things they can't do. It's just not in their vocabulary. And they grew to learn how to do that. And then there's the other ones that have not reached that point yet, and they see the sacrifices and they miss that. I miss that. We can't go out for dinner. We can't go to the movies. We can't do this. I miss that. So they see it as a sacrifice. And it's too bad, because it's pulling down the relationship. Like the things we can't do, I no longer think of them as a sacrifice. I look for ways to adapt to them. You know, and get around that sacrifice part of it. Now, are you asking me, did I ever make sacrifices? Of course I did. But that doesn't mean I'm going to dwell on them. I'm not going to think, okay, I sacrificed when I gave up driving. You know, if you want to think of that. But I adapted to it, and I know I did it for the right reason, the safety reason. I sacrificed doing a lot of things, but there was a reason why I had to do it. So I don't think about that. And I think the successful care partners are the ones that don't look at as caring for their loved one as being a sacrifice. I hear so many people saying that they put their life on hold because of their father, their husband, wife, whatever. And that's a sacrifice they made. But you know what? It depends how you view it. You know, same situation, same results, but you can view it differently, and you can be happy. You know, like I was really honored that I did what I did, that I spent time with my parents and things like that. I didn't sacrifice my life. It's something I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The other thing is that perception that we're in control of our life. We're constantly adapting, dementia or not. I mean, that's what life is, and there isn't anybody living that's not constantly adapting to something that is not in our control. You know, somebody's attitude, a car accident on the road, an illness. I mean, it's endless. It's, you know, a computer glitch, whatever. So we're constantly adapting. And I think if you can, you know, for me, I got to the point of, because I was frustrated. There were times, even though I wanted to be there for my folks and things like that, there were times where it didn't feel that good. And usually when it did, when I wasn't feeling good, it was because I was exhausted and because I wasn't taking care of me anymore. And I chose to not take care of me, you know, and to put the focus on, and I didn't realize the importance of balance, which I think can really get people in that feeling that they're sacrificing when they don't find that balance. And I think that's a critical piece. But Yeah, it's an interesting point that you make, and looking at it as any other relationship, that there's an ability to learn from the situation you're in. I mean, I can't even begin to list off the gifts my mom gave me through her disease and allowing me to be part of that journey. I mean, that it's a massively long list. And I probably still haven't realized all of the gifts that were wrapped in that journey, So how about you, Paulan? How do you feel about this topic?
Well, I think that it's important that there's a lot of balance, and I think that it's interesting. One of the examples that was brought up was driving. Well, it depends on how you look at the situation. If you look at it from the perspective of the person who's now having to give you a ride, they feel like they are sacrificing their time and effort to do that. If you look at it from the other person's perspective, they're sacrificing their freedom. They don't get to go when they want to go, or they go when the ride is available or whatever, and they're giving up their personal freedom. We make sacrifices with our careers. Obviously, we have to give up our careers. And I just think that there's so much emphasis on the suffering that the caregivers have, and they don't realize that we have to do a lot of work. Having dementia is a lot of work, just keeping track of where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing at any given point in time. People have all different kinds of methods to do it, but they have to work on it. It doesn't come easy.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Harry.
I think I look at sacrifice as a selfish goal. Now I know I'm going to hear about this, but if you sacrifice something, it's because you personally gave it up. So it's very selfish. I mean, when you sacrifice, it's not, and you feel like it's a sacrifice, you didn't do it for the good of something else, of somebody else. You feel like it's a sacrifice because it affects you.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. And like Paulan said, nobody realizes what we go through, the things we have to adapt to in our lives. Just the simplest things, like I had trouble tying my shoes, so I have to wear slip-on shoes, things like that. So many little things like that in our lives that nobody notices. Every time I shave, I draw a pint of blood, so I don't shave anymore. Is that a sacrifice, or is that a safety thing?
No, the beard looks good, Harry.
In my point of view, it's not a sacrifice to me.
One of the things that Harry brought up, or I think it was Harry, talking about different. I'm trying to remember if we talked about this before or after, but we talked about the understanding that sometimes we don't understand what care partners go through, and sometimes they don't understand what we go through on a daily basis. When I was first diagnosed, I went online and I was joining all these different groups and so forth, and I actually joined a group, and I can't remember the name of it. Even if I did, I wouldn't mention it. That it was, I think it was a combination of people with a dementia-related illness and care partners that were caring for the individuals. And there were so many negative comments from the care partners that, and this comes from, and I'm not bashing anybody, this is just not understanding things that we go through on a daily basis. But there was so many comments, and they were just venting. And I know this now, but they were venting about everything. And I was reading it not from a care partner point of view, but from somebody with the disease. And it just got it. I fully understood where I was and where they were. Mm-hmm. And that helped me understand where Shannon and the kids were coming from, because that started conversations with us. And I've asked them to tell me, if I ask you a question, you know, regarding things that I do, you've got to tell me. I said, because I will write it down. And when I write it down, I remember it, because I'll make reference to it. So that helped, even though it was sort of a negative thing. It turned into a positive, because I learned quite a bit, and it helped with our understanding from both sides, and we still do that today. You know, talk over, because I think that open communication does help.
Okay, I totally agree. When you had mentioned about the other group, I wasn't sure how you were going to apply some of the comments that you heard, because that can be really difficult sometimes, and it can get into a right or wrong and kind of a feud type thing. But you took it as, you took it and actually processed it in terms of what it was like. And one of the things that I liked what you said in the very beginning in your introduction is like, hey, I'm fourth generation, but I had no idea what this disease was like. I saw it for 4 generations. But when you're walking the walk, it's really different than what you think. And I think part of the issue with this disease is people's ability to adapt, people's ability to not show symptoms or hide, things they're struggling with. If it's tying shoes, and it's adapting to different types of clothes, different types of technology, different types of routines. All of those things make you look really comfortable, like you're not struggling. But inside it's going zoom, 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 and you're trying to stay on track and stay focused, but it doesn't show. People hide it really, really well. I know my mom did for ages. I mean, she just adapted and adapted and adapted. And one of the things that I remember having the conversation with Dina Dotson, who chose to take her life and do the assisted suicide. She just said, I'm tired of adapting. Mm-hmm. And I'm running out of options, was one of the things that she had talked about. And, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with her choice. I think everybody has the right to choose. But I think that that's something that people need to understand, the severity of adapting. It goes along good for a while, and then pretty soon, the options will wane, and there's not as many choices, and then the symptoms are going to become more obvious. And again, that's part of the stigma issue, because that's where everybody thinks the disease is, in those stages where people can adapt and can't control and stuff. And so it's a really strange disease. It's a very, how do we move past and move with, so that we're not leaving anybody behind, and adapt as a society, to this disease. We're seeing a lot of movements take place with, dementia-friendly communities and memory cafes, and we're seeing a lot more press about it, which is great. And one of my worries, I don't know if it's yours, but with some of the attention that's out there, is it, I worry, is it sincere, or are people chasing the buck going, oh, this is the next big wave, so, we're going to ride it, but are they truly going to meet the needs? Are they truly going to connect? And that's why I think it's even more important for your voices to be heard and understood, in terms of what's actually going on. Because with, I think, any industry, you get some of those people that are just out to ride the wave and make some money. And in this day and age where we're so far behind in research, even though we've come leaps and bounds, compared to other diseases, and the funding that's had, I don't want anybody grabbing funds that aren't really being utilized, for the disease itself, in terms of being viewed that they're doing good. And I got us off a little on track there, but that is a concern that I have with the disease as a whole. The more chatter that goes on. Have you guys seen that or felt that at all? Harry, you were shaking your head, and then I'll go to Paulan.
Well, on the, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because once I get started on funding, I can't get off of that. Some strong views on that. But on the flip side of what we talk about, yeah, we do suffer. We go through a lot of bad times. Mm-hmm. But if you allow us to, we could be happy. Mm-hmm. I could be happy sitting out on my deck watching the squirrel steal my birdseed. I don't have to have somebody worrying about the sacrifices I'm making. I'm happy out there. So if you can learn to allow me to be happy, I will be. Don't think of the things that I'm losing. Just allow me to use what I have. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say something about funding. I'm so angry about this.
No, really? You?
Everybody, I know we need money for research. I know that. I'm not stupid. But I know that a good majority of the money that is raised for funding is not going anywhere except in somebody else's pocket. And I will stand and debate this with anybody. And I can give examples of how everybody's trying to make a buck off of us. And it's really sad that the American motto is greed, and everybody wants to make a buck. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be able to make a buck, but when the pharmaceutical companies triple the price of medication just to make a buck, that's wrong. Mm-hmm. Wrong.
Okay, Paulan, you had a comment?
Yes, this was kind of going back a little bit, but it was about the importance of including people with dementia in any discussion of dementia. And I've seen a couple of situations recently that when you actually do put people together that have a particular dementia and the care partners into a group, such as Harry's group, Forget-Me-Not, his groups, there's a combination there of the people with dementia and the people taking care of them. And there's an incredible exchange of information that goes back and forth. I think that the people who don't have dementia, they gain a tremendous amount of insight when they listen to what the comments are made by people with dementia. And I think it works well the other way too. And I noticed that we talk about that sometimes, the care partners are kind of vicious about, their responsibilities or whatever sometimes. But I found that when there is a mix of people, things can go really well. I recently took a class at the University College London on many phases of dementia. And what was interesting about it was you would make comments or ask questions, and then anybody who was involved in the class would respond. And I found so many people that when I said I have dementia and then I would go on with my point, they were so caring in return, about it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I think we've got to give the care partners a break with that. I think that they, too, are very open to education and understanding.
Okay. Brian, did you have any comments that you wanted to add after hearing Harry and Paulan's comments?
Yes, I do, and I completely, I know what I said before, and I hope it came across as being a positive thing about, you know, learning from the care partners and so forth. I just didn't want to be a part of that group any longer, because I felt like, okay, I understand where they're coming from, and I'm living with somebody that's taking care of me, who expresses her not everything to me, but she expresses when her frustrations and so forth. So I know how hard it is, and I do the same with her. So I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that they, you know, that people listening know that I wasn't bashing, you know, any care partner groups or anything. But what Harry was talking about is it. I will put this mildly, that I'll use the word infuriate. That it infuriates me when I see on Twitter or on Facebook or on news about how the poor pharmaceutical companies or, you know, didn't meet their goals, you know, for a quarter, or, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, I brought this up one time, you know, Jonas Salk invented the vaccine for polio.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much money he made off of that vaccine? Zero. You know how much he was offered? He was offered millions. And his response to that was, why should I take money for a what's the for a vaccine, for a cure,
Mm-hmm.
when it's going to help people? Why should I take money for it? I invented it because I wanted to cure people. So here you go. He didn't take a dime for that. And now you have all these people that are making these, you know, cures and so forth, and say, hey, we got this cure. It's only $4.3 billion per pill. Can you, there you go, if you can afford it. And that's what it's come to, is that, yes, we raise money all year long for whatever organization that we belong to, and for whatever disease that we have. You know, for me, it's diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. You know, I have the trifecta myself. And the thing is that there are things that are available, but why do they have to make the prices so high? I agree that everybody has to make money, but they sure can adjust the prices so that everybody can afford them, and not to support the CEOs of the companies who are living in multi-billion-dollar mansions. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's come to with these corporations. I know that, you know, that they're working to develop things, but at what price? Mm-hmm. And that's a very, very sore subject with me, because of what Jonas Salk did. He understood what it meant to invent something for the good and just say, here you go. Mm-hmm. Who does that now? Now, you do have Bill Gates and who's the other guy? He used to be the treasurer, Warren Buffett, who are giving away billions of dollars of their money to help people. And I think that's absolutely wonderful, because, you know, can't take it with you. They've set aside money for their families, for their kids and so forth, and that's fine. But they just giving it away, and that's wonderful. I applaud them for doing that. I wish everybody would do that. But unfortunately, we don't live in that type of world. We live in a world, there are exceptions to the rule. We live in a greedy, greedy society.
Mm-hmm. Harry, you had a comment?
Yep. When I'm speaking to a group, I make sure that I bring up the point that there is so much help out there that we don't know about. Okay. There was so much help. I'm one of the biggest people speaking out on greed in this and that, whatever. But I'm also one of the biggest ones speaking out on the businesses and stuff that go out of the way to help us. But nobody knows about that. If you go to United Way, you find tons of phone numbers to get help. It's not going to cost you anything. There's so many places to get help. If you're having trouble with your medication, there's agencies that will help you with that. But none of us know about it, and that's a problem. When I speak, I think I have like 6 or 7 different pamphlets that I copied of phone numbers to get help. I have phone numbers for grocery stores that will deliver your groceries to you. Things like that. There's people that will come and sit with you. It's all falling underneath my United Against Dementia theory. But nobody knows about that. And it is so hard to get that message out. We talk about the bad people, and I'll tell you what, I'm one of the first ones to jump on the wagon. But like I said, I'm also the first one to say that we have to find more ways to communicate this help, this free help.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of my frustrations when I started Alzheimer's Speaks. And that's one of the reasons I started the resource directory. And it's free. People can list themselves in there, but they don't take the time to do it. And it's really sad because, and a lot of what I found, other organizations don't want to do it because they're so worried about liability and vetting somebody and making sure that everything is safe. And I get that to a point. But you can vet away and screen somebody, and 2 seconds later they can hire a schmuck. And that's just the way of the world. And so people have to take their own responsibility for who they hire and who they bring into their lives. But I think we can share our knowledge and our resources, and I think it's very sad that we don't. I also think it's really sad that there's competition of whose list is better, and some of those things go on. I mean, I've run into that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is just exhausting. The more the better as far as resources out there. It would be nice if there was one spot to go to. I don't think it'll ever happen because there's just too much knowledge. There's too much support that people, again, aren't aware of. That's why I started the radio show, was to try to lift the voice of people living with dementia, people, families living with dementia, business owners, authors, all of those types of things, researchers, because I think the piece that's missing is, and part of it has to do with just our society as a whole of being, everybody wants to be independent, everybody wants to be proprietary. They're not really good at being collaborative. We're seeing a slight change in that. But I don't think it's on a lot of levels, I don't think it's a true collaboration. I think it's some of it is a manipulated kind of staged collaboration that's going on out there because it looks good and people can't not be involved. But yet philosophies still aren't is free-spirited. There's not as much brainstorming. There's not as much true sharing because people are still worried about jobs and perceptions. And we have to break through all that stuff. We have to get really open-minded, I think, if we're going to create a better world, if we're going to create a better service delivery, and really look at, and I hear this all the time just through the stuff I do, people go, gosh, I was really inspired by that guest. they're doing that. Maybe I could try this. Maybe I could try a little bit of what they're doing and add a little something that of my skill set and do a new twist on it. And people are afraid, oh, someone's going to steal my concept. Well, you know what? You can't do it all. So, I don't want to say steal away, but, collaborate. I can't say collaborate. Collaborate. Okay.
Collaborate.
Yeah, that's right. Go back to school, or, but learn to collaborate. Learn to mentor others to help them, be the best they can be, and pull their ideas out and encourage them to try. That's one of the biggest mistakes I think we're making, is we still have this false perception that it's got to be perfect, and perfect doesn't exist. And this disease proves that services have to ebb and flow to meet the needs, because they're constantly changing. The person with dementia is changing, their care partners changing, their environments are changing, our communities are changing. So, it's not about creating this perfect delivery system. It's about getting started, getting excited, and knowing that if you're going to be the best at your game, you always have to change. You always have to adapt, like you guys are doing with the disease. You're learning to adapt constantly, and it's tiring. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I think people don't want to put in that much effort sometimes. Brian, you had a comment?
Yeah, you were talking about getting the message out and so forth, and as an advocate, I advocate every day, whether it's public appearances, through social media, or one-on-one if I'm anywhere. And the comment that I most get is that people come up to me and they say, I'm so in awe of you for being so open and honest about you having this disease. They said, how do you do this? And my first response to that is, how do I not? I said, if, I'm trying to get out there and make a difference in the world of Alzheimer's, but also in the world of early onset Alzheimer's, because people don't understand they still don't understand that Alzheimer's hits people under the age of 65, well into their, as early as 30s, and some even in their 20s. They don't know that. So I talk about it to anybody that's going to listen. Anybody that has questions, I will talk to them about it, because of the fact that I feel you can put anything you want out there, but if they don't make an effort to go and either read, watch, or listen to what that message is, they're not going to know anything. So, we as advocates, we get out there and do this not because we want to, but because we can, because we have the ability. In the back of my head lives that public relations guy that I used to be, and he kind of comes alive when I'm in front of an audience, and that allows me to speak, even though I have a script, because without a script, I would be like it just happened. Just like that, folks. It's kind of like a black curtain comes down in your head that it's not that you can't remember what you wanted to say, but it's nothingness. It just completely goes, and you can hardly remember what it was that you were trying to say. So that's why I use scripts. That's my crutch. I'm trying to use PowerPoint so I can kind of refer to the PowerPoint and talk about, as long as I have a guide, I'm okay. But if I have to go do it cold, it's it's a daunting task, and I just don't want to, I want to get up there and give a good message so that they will have a takeaway instead of saying things like, oh, we heard from this Alzheimer's guy and, you know, he kept on going blank. So I don't want that to happen. But yeah, I think it's, we get out there, we advocate, we talk about things, and we bring awareness to the disease because it's what we're able to do now. And I tell everybody, I think I've said this before, that this is the best, being a volunteer is the best job that I've ever had that I don't get paid for. So
I think education is really the key too. I think that's where it all comes back to education. I heard somebody recently just made the comment about, oh, don't read all that stuff. And I'm like, no, read it all. Read a lot of it and talk to a lot of people, because that's the only way you're going to really get correct information. And the education about stigma, we'll work on stigma, taking care of that. And I just think that's really key.
Mm-hmm. Harry, any comments?
Yeah, I consider myself, I think of myself as Johnny Appleseed. I plant the seeds, but it's up to somebody.
sorry.
It's up to somebody else to nurture that idea then and bring it to maturity.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many projects that I hope start up, but then I have to back out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's not mine, it's everybody's. And a lot of people can't do that. They start something up and it's theirs. They have to have control of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather give out the ideas, start it up, let somebody develop those ideas, good, bad, change, and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then see it grow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of more of a mentor and
Yes.
a brainstormer. Yes. That's kind of how I view myself too. I've been called the spark that ignites the fire. You know, and you get them gathered around the campfire, and they're nice and warm and having fun, and then you can leave. You know, but just being that spark that starts the campfire. And I think the more we chat, because there's no way we can do it all, or there's no way we should do it all or try to control it all. I think there's still some out there that try, some organizations that want to be the end all be all, and I don't think any of us can be, and I don't think any of us should be. I think we should all do the best we can with the skill set we have, and not try to be the other guy, not even try to beat out the other guy, just be the best we can be with the ideas and skills that we have. And instead of, you know, sometimes I get frustrated with the copycat theory out there, you know, of, well, we're going to take this and we'll want the same name because we want to pull that group. And it's kind of an ownership thing, yet they change the concept. And to me, that just confuses the public. It's like, no, make another thing that'll fall under the umbrella of that, but make it unique so that people know that there's a difference, and be proud that there's a difference, and let people know why are you making this change. You know, it's not putting down the other guy. It's just saying we have a different need here. But I don't think most people or businesses have elevated to really that state of really being confident in terms of what it is they're delivering and why it's important, why it's different. And people are still trying to be like the other guy, you know, but twist and maybe change terminology, which again just confuses the general public. When I was in real estate for 25 years, I saw that all the time. And, you know, people would go, and I'll use the example of even memory care. What is memory care? You know, everybody's got a memory care, but all the services are different, but people don't know what the differences are. in terms of the level of care or how they pick their staff or why their activity schedule or their menu is the way it is or their layout and design. And to me, those are the things that should be talked about. You know, those are the things that people need to understand so that they can make the right match for themselves. And I think I see it all the time. They're overlooked, and they're not bragging about what they're doing well or why they're doing what they're doing. Harry?
I need to put in a plug.
Mm-hmm.
Now I do a tremendous amount of mentoring, I one-on-one and at a group level. But one of the best places to go is Dementia Mentors. Now, not many people know about that. I mean, I think we have to do a better marketing job about that.
Mm-hmm.
But Dementia Mentors was started up, and it's for somebody that they can talk one-on-one to somebody with a like form of dementia. And that is so valuable because wherever I talk to somebody, that's the thing everybody is saying. I had nobody to talk to. And I'm saying, now, I'm no longer part of Dementia Mentors, but I always bring it up to people that there is places to go. Get in touch with Dementia Mentors, and they will do things for you.
Yeah. No, and that's for a person kind of recently diagnosed to hook up with someone who's heard those words themselves and
Right.
who has kind of figured out a game plan, and connections and support for those of you that don't know. So it's not for the care partners per se. It's really for the person diagnosed to speak to somebody else who really, truly gets it. Like nobody else can get it unless you walk that walk, you know, and walk that path. So good to bring up. We've got about just 2 minutes left. Brian, any last words or comments?
You put me on the spot there, Laura. I wasn't ready for you. Just, you know, people with a dementia-related illness, I know there are people with other illnesses and so forth, but our illnesses, basically, a lot of them don't have physical traits. You can't see a scar or anything like that. And I think we're extremely misunderstood. If you see or know someone with Alzheimer's or another dementia-related illness, take some time just to talk to them, to just say hi, anything. Just be kind, spread the kindness, because it goes a long way. There's a lot of people that don't speak to me anymore because they don't really know what to say, because they don't think that I can carry on a intelligent conversation like I used to. So just be kind and just say hi.
Okay. Paulan, how about you?
Well, I just want to put another little plug in for Dementia Mentors, because that's a group I've been very involved in, and the mentoring situation is phenomenal. And it becomes a very intimate relationship because you're talking about very intimate things, and you're one-on-one, and you feel in a safe environment to do so. But the relationships, they flip. So you may be a mentor to somebody, and then as life goes on and things progress, it kind of flips, and they start being a mentor to you. It's just a wonderful relationship.
Mm-hmm. And Harry?
I encourage everybody to become a history buff. The other day I was speaking to somebody, and the topic came up, and he asked me, he said, "When were you born, Harry?" I said, 1946. He says, 1946, I was just returning home from World War II. And that opened up the door that he started to tell me some of the history of the war. And I encourage people, become a history buff. Talk to somebody with dementia and not just say, you know, be pleasant, how you feeling. Talk to them. Learn about their history.
Mm-hmm. Good. I want to throw one quick question by everybody, and I should have asked this earlier. And it goes back to our conversation on sacrifice. But if you have a partner who feels that they're, you know, sacrificing, what would you, and maybe they're getting angry with you as a person living with dementia and frustrated. How would you recommend a person with dementia approach their care partner? And given the conversation we had about you guys' sacrifice as well. Paulan, any ideas on that?
Well, I think communication is the key again, and not being afraid to say what's going on. Like for the person, maybe who just, like my husband will say, "You've asked me that 5 times now." And I'll acknowledge and I'll make a joke about it and we'll go on about it. But I think the education and the two-way conversation is the key.
Okay. Brian, how about you?
I agree. Having a conversation, an open conversation, is important because you, if the conversation breaks down, communication breaks down, then you have a bigger problem. But, you know, I've always told Shannon that there are online support groups. There's the 800 number you can call for the Alzheimer's Association. There are, like I said, online and outside of the house support groups that they can go to where there are plenty of people that are going through some of the same things. And just like us talking to other people with dementia-related illnesses, we find that there are so many similarities, and it doesn't make us feel like we're singled out, that we're the only one dealing with that stuff.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Harry, how about you?
Well, first of all, when somebody starts telling me about their sacrifices, I realize what a burden I am on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always bring that up to them, how I feel about how much of a burden and how I feel about carrying this weight of letting them down. And it opens up the doors of communication. Now, people don't know how to talk to us living with dementia. Okay, you have to come into my world and you have to leave all those protective things aside in your world, because in my world, there is no protection. When we talk, it's whatever comes out. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good advice. I like that, you know, bringing up the feelings. And I think that's sometimes what people are afraid of is the feelings and expressing those. But I do believe that you have to get out. And maybe it's talking to a counselor or coach. I mean, there's lots of different alternatives. We've talked about the social media support groups. We've talked about, you know, the physical groups as well. So there's all kinds of options out there. But don't keep it bottled in. You know, doesn't do anybody any good. And I thank you guys for your time. We will see you the second Tuesday of next month. Okay?
Thank you, Lori.